So
Great.
welcome back to The Creative Real Estate Agent. I'm your host, Anastasia Forrest, broker associate with eXp Realty and creative person. Today, I have a guest that I'm very excited to introduce you to. Her name is Beth Carol Anderson. Sorry, I totally messed that up. Her pen name is Carol Beth Anderson, but her name, which I will be calling her, is Beth.
Well, hi, Anastasia. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. So Beth used to be a real estate agent. She was an agent from full-time from the years of 2002 to 2005. And since then, even though she kept her license active for a while, from what I understand, she ended up going more in the direction of her creativity into a full-time creative profession. She's now a full-time author, and she started writing her first book in 2017, and she's written and published 9. And she's on her 10th, which I think is just incredible. So I'm really excited to talk to Beth about how she was able to integrate her creativity when she was an agent, and perhaps, how it complemented, how it contrasted, how it fit in, and then also just what it was like going full-time, taking that leap over into the full-time creative career profession direction. So this is Beth. Welcome to the show.
Thanks. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk with you today.
Me too. So before we get into it, I'm going to do my little icebreaker section of the show where I'm going to ask you some random questions. And for you, this kind of just came to me the other night while I was reading to my 4-year-old Ophelia, her bedtime stories. And I was just kind of thinking about how if you broke down these stories into like their simplest, like plot level elements, how ridiculous they kind of sound. So I'm going to give you 3. I kind of broke down 3 of the stories into one sentence, and I'm going to give you 3 different questions, and you can tell me what story. So Beth has 2 kids. So she's read Dr. Seuss. I just gave you a hint, but that's okay.
Oh man.
Right. So the first one, hat wearing dogs driving cars to a party in a tree.
Hat wearing dogs driving cars to a party in a tree. I honestly can't think of that one. Maybe that's that one that I read my kids.
Oh no, that was like the first book I read when I was a kid. So maybe I just know the plot way too well. That one was Go Dogs Go.
Oh yeah, that's one. I don't even know if we have that one.
Oh, how funny.
Yeah. I should check though. Like a lot of our Dr. Seuss books are actually ones that my husband grew up with. Like he has his old ones. And I know they're, you always kind of go back to the same ones over and over. So it may be that we have it and it just wasn't a favorite.
Oh boy. Well, everybody has their own taste, I suppose.
That's right. Give me some grace.
All right. This next one also involves a hat wearing animal. A hat wearing cat makes a huge mess in a stranger's house and then cleans it all up.
That's definitely Cat in the Hat. I got that one. That's a good one.
Okay. Cool. Cause I haven't gotten through that whole thing and the whole story in a while, but I'm pretty sure that's the gist of that.
Yeah,
one.
that totally sounded right.
All right. And finally, bird with a lack of awareness regarding what species it belongs to, trying to find its mother.
That is Are You My Mother? That's a good book.
Woo! All right. I love that one too. It is so sweet. I read that to Ophelia. I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's so sweet.
Yes, it's a great book.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was fun. You did a great job.
2 out of 3,
2 out of 3 ain't bad. Oh man. Okay. So I did want to mention how I met you. Do you remember how we met?
No, wasn't it like on Twitter or was it not?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
I just think that's so funny because I got on Twitter just, I guess, a year into my real estate profession career. And I was like, I wonder if I could use Twitter for my real estate. I wonder how that would go for marketing. I'll try it. So I got on there and I tried to do the real estate thing. It was hard to get any traction there. I think, this is a tough platform for real estate, but I did start to see all the hashtag VSS365 posts that the writing community was posting. And if you guys, probably most of you don't know what that is. It's basically a hashtag that people on Twitter use to basically tag their story. There's like a prompt each day, a single word prompt, and each person crafts a really short story to fit into Twitter's specifications and using that word. And everybody comes up with all these different stories, and it's so much fun. And I quickly got sucked into that.
Yes.
And I started reading Beth's stories because she's amazing. You'll find that her writing is just incredible. And then also because you drink decaf coffee and I drink decaf as well.
Yes,
so I think we connected
over
the
decaf. Yes.
Oh my
goodness. So great. It's like almost not acceptable for authors to drink decaf. I'm surprised I haven't been kicked out of the writing community for it. But it's always nice to find somebody else who drinks it too.
Oh yes. So now I had to get off Twitter. I was spending way too much time on it. Mm-hmm. So now I see Beth on Facebook. So she's my one and only like friend I somehow made on Twitter.
Really?
I just think that's
cool.
So interesting. Yeah.
I feel like privileged for that.
I mean, I could chat with other people through different comments and things like that, but you're the only one I connected to off
right. Yeah.
That platform and everything because cool. I'm reading her books. I love her books. I beta read. That's how you say that, right?
Yep.
Beta read. Yeah. I beta read one of her bocks and helped her. I don't know. I gave her I don't know if it helped or not, but I gave her
It's
feedback.
Always helpful. Always. Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to hear much more about you. Okay. And the first thing I want to find out is what made you want to become a realtor?
So I had, after college, I worked for the university that I graduated from. I did recruiting for them for a few years, and then my position was eliminated. And so I knew that was coming up. And I just started talking to people saying, hey, I'm going to be looking for a new career. And I was pretty open as to what I did. I mean, my degree is in theater and I didn't want to use that. So that kind of opened me up to anything. One of those classic people with like a liberal arts degree that does everything, but, and one of my friends was a realtor who at the time had been in real estate for like, I think about 20 years. And she said, I think you'd be really good at this. And so I started looking into it. And I've always been really like super goal oriented. And so, and I'd never really done any sort of self-employment stuff as an adult. And it really just attracted me, the thought of being in charge of my own career and my own income. And I liked working with people. I've always liked like customer service type things. And so it just seemed like it would be a good fit.
Cool. Yeah, I can totally see that. I actually have a liberal arts degree as well.
Nice.
Philosophy and religion. So
always useful. Yeah.
I'm not a professional philosopher, obviously.
Right.
So.
Right.
Yes. Yep. Right. So when you did sell real estate, did you have like a specialty? Did you have a niche that you worked with?
I mean, I did a little bit of everything, but a little bit of everything residential. I never did commercial, but I loved working with first-time buyers. I ended up working with a lot of first-time buyers. It's not necessarily the best thing business-wise because, the houses are usually less expensive, but I was able to work with some people that, were not first-time buyers to supplement that. But I just loved the educational side of it. I really loved like taking somebody's hand through the whole process and feeling like they really understood what they were doing. And that's something I've always liked doing is teaching people what I know. And so working with first-time buyers was perfect for that.
Oh, I can definitely see you being really strong in that role. I mean, you're such a strong communicator.
Thank you.
And so to be able to really effectively communicate with somebody when they're going through that process is huge. And not only with the client, but also with the other agent,
definitely,
and with the other professionals you interact with, the inspector, the appraiser, if you had any interaction with them. But, anyway, lots of communication.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's so much of what it is.
Yeah. So when you were practicing real estate, were you able to be creative as well? And did you find it was something you were able to blend into your career, or was it totally separate worlds?
I think I've always brought some type of creativity into my career. So I remember putting together like this first-time homebuyer guide. Actually, I don't remember if it was specifically for first time, but it was like a homebuyer guide that I would give my buyers to take with them while we worked through that whole process. So, writing that and kind of helping design that, and even just putting together like property flyers while I was waiting for the professional ones to come out. I enjoyed that sort of thing. I would do, this was back before social media was a huge deal. And so I would do actual paper newsletters that I would write and send out to people once a month or so. And so, yeah, I definitely brought it in, but I think during that time, I also had the flexibility of doing creative stuff outside my job. So I was super involved in a community theater when I was during those few years that I was in real estate. And like my client who I sold their house, and it was my biggest sale ever, came from somebody that I'd done a play with. And so I think like we can't underestimate the power of just building relationships in our lives. I mean, I certainly did not get involved in community theater so that I could find real estate clients, but you build trust with people when you're getting together and doing things that you love together. And so that ended up being a connection, even though I didn't expect it to be.
Oh, that's very cool. I definitely can relate to that. And I was actually I have a couple people I'm mentoring, and one of the big questions is, well, how am I going to get leads? What do you recommend? Mm-hmm. What should I do? And honestly, I was like, well, I mean, if you don't want to cold call, I mean, that's really hard and awkward. And it feels, unless you're like a natural salesperson, which I'm not like, I'm not, I don't want to pressure people or, mess with their mind or something. Not that saying that's part, but that's part of it, right? A little bit of,
right. But so much of it's, relational.
Yeah. So saying, why don't you think of what you like, think of what you enjoy, and go out there and get involved in something. Start a group, start a project, start a gathering, something in the community that really you're inspired about. And, and just like focus on your sphere. And it's not like you said, it's not like you get into it just to be like, oh, I'm going to talk about real estate every single day or something. But, you end up making those relationships and friendships, and that just seems like a lot more enjoyable way to connect. And network. Absolutely. So if you were, okay, it's funny. So when we talked on the phone the other day and you mentioned newsletters, I totally pictured emails. So I wasn't picturing the paper newsletters. Isn't that
funny? Yeah. That is because, so funny. I mean, there were email newsletters back then, but they were still like really suggesting that you send paper, which actually I still think is a good idea to integrate something like that, because I don't know about you, but like my email inbox, like I've got this app on my phone where I can just swipe to mark something as read. And like 95% of my newsletters I mark as read without ever opening, because we're just swamped. And I feel like I'm more likely to open something in an envelope, And so even though it's old school, and if I was doing real estate now, I mean, I would be marketing really differently, but I feel like I would still be doing a few of those old school things, like to supplement the new stuff, because it reaches different people.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So back to that comment specifically about if you were doing real estate today, can you maybe expand on that? Like, what platforms, like on the internet, like social media, what would you be focusing on personally, do you think?
I think probably Facebook, because Facebook is where most of my local friends are. I mean, I'm active on other communities, but I feel like other communities or other social media that I'm on I'm connecting with a lot of people kind of around the country and around the world, but a good chunk of my Facebook friends are local. So I'd probably be focusing a lot on that. And also just because like Facebook is kind of an old person's platform right now. and I don't mean like super old, but so many people on Facebook are like 30s and above. And really that's also so many of the people you're going to work with in real estate. So Facebook was not, I didn't get into Facebook until after I'd gotten out of my full-time real estate career. But I think I'd definitely be doing that. And I mean, a massive chunk of my book marketing, is social media. So I know if I was doing real estate right now, that would be a huge chunk of it too.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny what you said about Facebook as being an old person's platform. Because I remember when it first came out, it was so cutting edge, and I didn't even use it for a while. And
it was just so like it started
this
at a
Facebook
college
thing. Yeah,
right. I didn't like I stayed away from Facebook for a long time. I didn't want to be like obsessive about it, and then of course I got on and haven't ever gotten off. But I mean, I look at my kids who are 13 and 15, and they have zero interest in Facebook. So.
Interesting. So that's how it is, huh? Oh my gosh.
It is. I know.
Idea.
I'm sorry to break it to you.
That's hilarious. Okay. Well, I actually really like Facebook too. I mean, as far as
it's a great platform. It really is.
Keeping up with
it can be frustrating because like when you're trying to use it for business, like you're so much at the mercy of an ever-changing algorithm, and that can be pretty tough. But so I think you have to be out there in other ways too. I just don't think you ever put all your eggs in one basket, ever.
Oh yeah. And at the same time, as you're doing that, you have to be conscious not to be real estate all the time and be annoying. It's
Absolutely.
tricky. It is tricky.
Always tricky. Yeah. Yep. It's the same with selling books. It's you want to be an actual person, not just like, somebody walking around with a book cover as a face, or in your case, a house as a face. People need to see you as a real person too.
Right. For sure. Okay. So I am curious. So then you had your kids, right? I mean, one at a time.
Right.
But pretty much you said that when we spoke earlier, you mentioned that your real estate career kind of came to a natural, gradual stop. Is that right? And it had to do with motherhood?
Yeah. I mean, I kept my license active for actually, I think about 10 years after I was doing real estate full time. So I ended up doing it full time for about 3 years. It started at the end of 2002. And then my daughter was born at the very beginning of 2006. So most of my real estate was 2003, 2004, 2005. And, but yeah, I mean, I didn't really market myself much at all during those 10 years. I would just take on old clients and their friends every once in a while, which was actually really, really cool because if you've built those relationships, you've always got those few people who will come back to you. And that was awesome to have that flexibility. And then eventually I just let it go altogether.
Well, those are wonderful clients to work with. Not that I don't love getting new clients as well and meeting new people, because I do. But the nice thing about people that really are like your people that are going to come to you and that, you've worked with before is just that they're nice and they're not,
yes, and they trust you already. Yes, and like, yeah, absolutely.
The relationship is there and it's solid, and you don't feel like they're just going to like not call you the next day and drop off the face of the earth. And then you've done all this work and they're just gone, which can happen with people that don't know you that well, because they don't feel like they have anything to, they don't know you. They don't feel guilty as, necessarily as somebody would if they are your friend or something. So anyway, interesting stuff. But, so what inspired you to seriously pursue writing and being an author? What made you do that?
I'd always liked writing. I mean, I know there's some statistic about the percentage of people who say they want to write a book, and it's like this really high percentage, and most people never do it, And so I'd always said I wanted to write a book, and eventually ended up doing a lot of blogging for a while, and even thought, maybe I'm never going to write a book. Maybe I'm just a blogger. But one day I went to Half Price Books, which is I think regional. I'm sure not everybody has Half Price Books, but it's like a used bookstore, big used bookstore. And I went there to sell some books back. I was just cleaning out my shelves, and it was on a weekend. So they were really busy, and you have to hang out while they like review your books. And they were like, it's going to take us like 45 minutes to tell you what we can pay you for these books. So I was just hanging out at the store this whole time. And I come across this lady who's standing behind a table with books in front of her doing a book signing, and nobody's talking to her, which I'll just tell you, like, it's such an uncomfortable thing. I mean, I've been through that now, and it's just like, you're like waiting to see who's going to come, and it's super awkward. And so I saw her and I thought I should just go talk to this lady. So I went and talked to her, and we just started chatting. She was really nice. I think she had 6 kids, and she had these 2 books that she'd published. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to buy one per book. So I bought this little novella, just a short novel. And I read it that night because it was short enough to read in just a few hours. And I didn't actually like the book that much, but I found myself going, wow, if this lady with 6 kids can write books, I could totally do this. And so I literally sat down that night and started brainstorming, and a couple of days later started writing my first series. So it was just like that switch was flipped in my head. But I feel like, I'd had, how old was I by then? I was in my late 30s by then. So I feel like I'd had like almost 4 decades of prep for that, of writing this and writing that. And, just lots and lots of writing through the years that kind of prepared me to sit down and finally write a book, and so much reading too. I mean, I've always been a big reader, and that's huge when you're a writer. So I mean, the switch flipped in one day, but like, it was a really long process getting to that.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah. It's neat how quickly it happened once the flip was switched, though.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Had you written a lot of fiction before? Because your first book, I mean, I've read the first trilogy, and like, I mean, it's really well developed, like completely fictional world.
Yeah, I hadn't written a lot of fiction. Well, I mean, I just done short stuff, little short stories, but that was mostly like in school. I used to write like little skits and stuff that we would do sometimes like at church. And so just short little fictional things. I'd never attempted anything longer. And again, like reading a lot is massive because you just soak in so much of what you're reading and start to learn what a good book should be. But as I was writing my first book, like it wasn't very well structured, and I had to go back and do some really, really big revisions to get it to the point that it was ready to be published, because I didn't really know anything about writing a book. So I was kind of flying by the seat of my pants at first, and through that time really learned about kind of structuring a story, and it wasn't a straight path.
Okay. I love it. So it's a combination of absorbing from things you've read, like in an intuitive way, and then a conscious, like going back with a kind of like a scalpel and just kind of.
Yeah. And there are people that just have like absorbed like what they call story structure, like so well that they just naturally write that way. And I'm just not one of those people. Like
you'll probably be there though. Yeah.
Maybe that would be really great. But yeah, I had to do the research on like, how do you actually outline something in a way that it's going to flow well for people? And I've gotten better at that as my books have gone on.
So I'm curious, do you have like a favorite? I mean, did you read all the Harry Potter books? Do you have a favorite fantasy series?
Yeah, I mean, I read the Harry Potter books, but as as an adult in my 30s when my daughter was reading them. And so I liked them, but I didn't fall in love with them the way I think I would have if I'd read them when I was closer to that age. But I really enjoyed them, especially like the last half of the series, maybe when the characters are a little older. But I love, there's several authors that I love. I love Brent Weeks, who's epic fantasy, and he's just incredible. He has this series called the Lightbringer series, and it's just amazing. I love Michael J. Sullivan is also epic fantasy, but not as epic. Great characters. I've been reading like my next series is going to have more romance in it. So I've been reading like more fantasy romance. Sarah J. Maas is just like page turner, her stuff is really fun. There's Jennifer Armentrout. I just finished reading her From Blood and Ash series. And those are other books that most of them, the last one, I didn't think it was as good, but the first two, I just like couldn't stop reading. So yeah, those are some of my favorites. Oh, and I absolutely love Leigh Bardugo. So I haven't finished watching the Shadow and Bone series on Netflix yet, but I love those books. Super inspiring to me to see how she builds a magical world.
Oh, cool. Well, you've given me lots of ideas about things to check out.
Yes. So many books for little time.
Yes. Well, and that also ties into another question I had for you, because you threw around some genre terms that, I'm not super familiar, like epic fantasy compared to like a different kind of fantasy. I don't know those really subtle, like, I don't know if they're subtle differentiations or maybe they're not so subtle, but like for you, like what would you describe your genre as?
So, right now I'm writing like upper YA fantasy. So basically older teenagers who are still learning who they are. But I mean, upper YA is more the age group than the genre. So as fantasy, I would say my books have some epic elements, but epic fantasy can sometimes be really, really long and involved, and mine are not like super, super long, but definitely some epic elements with like rich world building. Some people would call it high fantasy. My stuff is definitely high fantasy, where you've got like very specific magic that's a really important part of the world. And then what I'm exploring now is with trying to bring more romance into my next series, but it's still very much a fantasy focused series. I think the term that I've realized fits best is romantic fantasy. It's not fantasy romance, because fantasy romance is kind of primarily romance with fantasy, like in a fantasy world, whereas romantic fantasy would be kind of primarily fantasy, or even maybe more of an equal thing, but with a pretty strong romance element. So yeah, there's just so many there's so many terms out there, but the thing is, I mean, you ask one person and they're going to have a different definition for those terms than I do. So don't worry if you're not sure what they mean, because the writers really lots of times aren't either.
Okay. So would, I can't think of the name of the movie series, but, with the vampire one with the romance, is that
like Twilight?
fantasy?
So
yes.
Is it Twilight? Okay. So, which actually, believe it or not, I've never read or seen, but that would probably be considered paranormal romance. Vampires are usually considered more paranormal than fantasy, but it's really all pretty tightly connected, you know? So, and from what I've heard about it, it's pretty romance focused, I think. Am I right on that?
Well, you know what? I've seen one or two, but I would not consider, it's been a very long time. I think there's quite a bit of romance though. That was a big part of it. Yeah.
A lot of it comes down to what drives the plot and the storyline. Is that relationship driving it, or is there something external driving the plot and the storyline, and the relationship is kind of just happening?
Star power,
you know,
star power. I think they were trying, yeah, I think the star power drove that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any days on which you wake up and you're like, oh, I don't want to do this. I want to do something else. I'm tired of this.
Yeah. I mean, I think I procrastinate almost every day. TikTok has been really horrible for that for me, because in the morning I'm like, oh, I have this idea for a TikTok video. I'm going to make it and it's going to take me 5 minutes, and then it doesn't. And, half an hour later, I still haven't finished my video and started writing for the day. So, yeah, for some reason, sitting down and starting is always hard for me. Once I've started, I'm usually good to go. I see it kind of if you're in a long-term romantic relationship, and some days you feel really, really in love with that person, and other days you're just committed, and to me, writing's the same way. There are days when I just am lost in the wonder of how great it is. And then there are other days when I'm just trying to meet my word count goal, but those goals are super motivating to me. And having those goals helps me stay on track. So I get it done. I just pretty much always get it done, but sometimes I feel it and sometimes I don't. And I hate to do this, but I'm realizing my plug that's outside the GFCI isn't working. So I'm going to run inside and plug my computer in, or else I'm going to lose you. So
okay, no worries. Yeah, thanks. Gotta have power.
Yes.
So I could just sing while you're gone. It is a creative show.
You totally could. That would be amazing. Okay, thankfully I had a really
computer.
Perfect. Some improv. Okay, and I'm gonna make sure that actually plugged in. It did. We're good to go.
Woo! All right. Good job. Good job. So, okay. Yeah. So I guess my next question for you would be, how many hours do you spend writing each day, and do you take days off?
Yeah. I'll answer the days off part first. When I was writing my first series, I worked for writing, editing, just working on the publication, all of that. I worked for over a year without taking a day off, which wasn't healthy at all. My poor family, I just tend to jump in with both feet. And I was like, is it really workaholism if you love it? And it is. It's still workaholism. and so I had to really super consciously take a step back when my kids and my husband were like, wow, you're writing all the time. And I had a job at the time too, for most of that time. I ended up switching to writing basically full time, about a year into my writing process. And so yes, I take off. I try to completely take off on Sundays. I usually take off most or all of Saturdays too. And that's ended up being something that I think has helped me sustain, a decent pace. Whereas I don't think I could have kept going without taking days off. It just wasn't healthy. And as for the number of hours, I mean, it's hard to nail that down because like there's so much that I do besides writing. So when I'm drafting a book, which right now I am, I might write for just a few hours a day, 5 days a week, or 4 to 5 days a week. Sometimes I try to get it all done by Thursday so I can spend my Friday catching up on all the marketing and stuff. But I'm doing other marketing, along with that. So I might be writing, or I might be editing, or I might be producing an audiobook, but I'm also on social media, hyping stuff and just keeping relationships there and talking about writing. And there's just so many tasks involved. I'm on Amazon getting stuff all straight. And so I would say most weeks I'm probably working on publishing related stuff like 30 to 45 hours a week. So it's sometimes officially full time and sometimes it's not. I've still got kids that, need my attention even though they're a little older. And so that takes up my time too.
Oh yeah. Priorities for sure.
Yes,
and that's all a part of it. Same in real estate. It's like, well, your family. I mean, it's your family.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
How old are your kids?
They're 13 and 15. And then we have an 18-year-old French exchange student that's actually going home in like a week and a half. Or a week, I don't know. She's going home on June 5th, however long that is from here, a couple weeks from now. And so yeah, I mean, we've got a house full of teenagers.
Oh, fun. Oh, fun. Do they read your books?
So my son always reads my books. My daughter read some of the first series, and I actually read some of it to them as I was writing it. I don't think she ever finished the first series, but I mean, she's 15. I don't expect her to be super interested in what I'm doing, even though I'm writing for that age group. I'm her mom. I'm not a cool author. I'm just her mom. So,
come on, you have purple hair. You're very cool.
Uh-oh. Oh, I thought I lost you for a second there. Hang on, I got to find you again. Well, yeah, I'm glad you think so, but my son still thinks it's cool that I'm an author. So, 1 out of 2, that's a good thing.
Are most of your readers, I imagine you have quite a few adult. I'm sure I'm not the only adult that loves your books.
Yeah.
Right?
I think they say at least half, maybe over half of YA readers who are reading teen fiction are adults. And then when you're an indie author like I am, it tends to be way more than half because we focus so much on selling ebooks. I mean, we sell paperbacks and stuff too, but you can't walk into a Barnes and Noble and find my stuff. You're finding my stuff mostly online. And teenagers are still really focused a lot on paper books and, to walk into stores and buy a book. And so I would say the large majority of my audience is adult, but I love reading YA too. So,
Well, every book I've read of yours has been on my Kindle. I will say I don't own a paperback copy, though. I think maybe when my older daughter gets older, I might buy her the trilogy. They're really good. I mean, there's a lot of really good themes in there. It's not just, the thrill of the story. There's also lessons and journeys and developments that the characters go through.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
So, for new writers do you think it's possible for realtors that are interested in writing to also have maybe a side hustle of writing?
Oh, sure. I mean, most authors are working another job. I'm, I have the privilege of being able to stay home, but I didn't always do that. I was, I had a part-time job when I started writing, but it was a pretty heavy part-time job, 30 hours a week. And I still found a lot of time to write. And there are a lot of people who are working full-time jobs that are finding time. And I think it's just a matter of pacing yourself. So, if you sit down and write 500 words a day, which is one single spaced word page in Microsoft Word, it's not that much. If you sit down and do that, then you can write an 80,000 word novel in 160 days, which is less than a year, you know? And if you take weekends off, you can still do it in less than a year. And if you only have time to write 100 words a day, you can still write a novel in a few years, you know? So, so I think it's just a matter of like carving out that time. Because I went so overboard with working every day when I started, I'll never be somebody that says you have to write daily. Some people will say that, write every single day. You don't have to write daily, but I think it is really good to have some sort of consistency, you know, like this is the amount I'm trying to get in every day. And even if it's a small goal, you're making it to where you want to be eventually. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. I think a common challenge with creatives and or realtors that are really work focused even. I mean, it's easy to go too far in any direction. It's easy to get out of balance. And then also, but it's like, but if you don't go kind of full force toward your goals, it's kind of easy to get a little lax and maybe not be consistent. So it's really, I think it's a journey of finding the balance that works for you.
Yeah, it's a hard balance to find. I mean, the nice thing about writing is you've got a lot of control over your timing. Real estate, one of the challenges for me always was that like you really don't have that much control. I mean, you can say no to deals, but like when you're trying to do it full time, you're usually wanting to say yes, because that deal that comes to you next, you know, this month may not come to you next month in another form if you say no to it. And so, so with real estate, I mean, you're so much at the mercy of kind of what's happening with your clients and with the market. And that makes it harder to stay balanced. But there are certainly realtors who, you know, who find the way to do it and who find the way to make sure that they're creating boundaries with their family time and all of that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's a constant flux. That's certainly part of the challenge. It's a bit of a roller coaster sometimes.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah. So what is your favorite, platform for creativity, for your writing, for connecting? Do you have is it Twitter? Is it something else? What is it now?
Yeah. So, Twitter is like my place to connect with other authors, with other writers, which I think is really valuable because writing can be really solitary, and just for like mental health, it's great to connect with other writers. And because you share ideas with each other and you encourage each other. Now, I've been really surprised how many books I have sold through Twitter, knowing that like most of the people I'm connected with there are writers, but you know, writers are readers too. So that's actually ended up being a really good sales platform for me. But it's not a platform where I'm just on there like focused entirely on sales. I'm talking writing with people, and I'm sharing information with people. And, you know, I'm doing my little very short stories, which don't have anything to do with my books, but give people a taste of my writing and all of that. So Twitter's great for connecting with writers. When you're connecting with readers, I would say like TikTok and Instagram are great for that. I don't do a lot on Instagram. I mean, I'm on Instagram. I'm just not super involved there. I've become more involved in TikTok, and there's a really big readers community and a big writers community there. There's good stuff on Facebook for writers too. There are a lot of Facebook group or for readers and writers. There are a lot of Facebook groups that can kind of help you target into your genre and stuff. So I would say everything but Twitter is where readers hang out. On Facebook, readers like to talk about the books that they like. On Instagram and TikTok, they do that too, but there's a really big image component. Like people love beautiful book covers on TikTok and Instagram. It's just such a visual, you know, they're such visual mediums.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm saying like I know, but I don't have TikTok. I should probably like experiment with it and just see what it's all about.
Maybe like, I mean, if you're focused on real estate,
not so much.
I don't think you're gonna. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure some people do, but like, you know, whereas I said that Facebook is like the place for old people, TikTok is the place for young people.
That's where I belong. So, I belong with the old people.
yeah, I do too. But like, but you know, if you're in an industry that targets young people, which I am, like TikTok is great. But and there are plenty of people who are in their 30s and 40s and older there. But like our 18-year-old exchange student likes TikTok. You know, that's a place that she hangs out, whereas she hardly ever goes on Facebook. So
Okay. Well, this is very good
Yeah.
information.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you actually already addressed this thing, this question I was going to ask you about how important it is to interact with other writers. You can't, I mean, I assume that's really important because just writing, putting it out there and leaving it there, just hoping somebody's going to take notice of it probably doesn't work very well.
Yeah. I mean, I think when you connect with other writers, you also it helps you stay on track with the business side of things, like what's happening with publishing, whether you're doing traditional publishing, pursuing traditional publishing, or independent publishing like I do. Connecting with other writers is really, really helpful it's just a constantly changing environment. And then you've got the encouragement side of it. I think if you end up being as lucky as I have been to connect with writers who also want to read your books, that's great, but that can't really be the primary thing. Like, I have a lot of readers who are not writers, which I think is really important too. You can't, as authors, lots of times we end up getting stuck in this little bubble that's a whole bunch of other authors, and then eventually they get really tired of being asked to read your books. But if you're reaching out to readers who aren't authors also, then you've kind of got an unlimited number of potential customers. So I just think it's good for authors to think of connecting with other writers from a standpoint of supporting each other in the process, rather than considering other authors to be your primary customers.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So
I've got a fly that's
he
so
likes
if I look
you.
like I'm doing this, that's why he really likes me.
So do you mind sharing about how you publish your books? I mean, did you find a company that is a printing company and does it, or I mean, how do you do that?
So I'm self-published. I'm completely independent. So there's just a lot of really good tools for self-published authors right now. So I chose that route from the start. So all of my ebooks I publish through Amazon, and you can just go direct. It's called Kindle Digital Publishing, KDP. So I go direct to KDP. Some of my ebooks are on other platforms too, like Nook and Kobo and iBooks, but and I go through a distributor for that, but it's called Draft to Digital. My paperbacks are published both through Amazon because they have their own paperback publishing arm, but they're also published through Ingram Spark, who's kind of the big distributor in America. That's where bookstores and stuff order from, is Ingram, and Ingram Spark is their self-publishing arm where anybody can publish paperbacks. I do audiobooks, which some are published direct through kind of Amazon/Audible, and some are published other places as well. But basically, there's just all of these places that as authors, as indie authors, we could now go directly to and take our files to them, and they'll distribute them for us, and in exchange for a cut of the royalties. And it cuts out that publisher middleman, so you're getting a higher percentage of the royalties, but you're also not getting the support of a publisher. And so it's just something every author has to consider, which route is best for them.
Yeah. Well, I hope you real estate agents that are creative and that are interested in writing are listening to this, because you could always write a book about real estate. There are definitely books about real estate out there that,
Yeah. And the nice thing, if you go the nonfiction route, I've got one nonfiction that is written for authors, and honestly, it's not doing that well. So I probably shouldn't be the one talking about this, because my fiction does better. But if you go the nonfiction route and you find a really good niche where there's information that's needed and it's not really being provided, then some nonfiction writers are really, really successful at because you're meeting a need, and there just doesn't tend to be the same type of kind of competition, the same number of books available in a lot of nonfiction fields as there is in fiction. So if I think it's a great idea. If you've got something that you really specialize in real estate, and you're doing it really well and you could teach other people to do it, write a book about it.
Yeah, I love it. No, I think there's a lot of room there for somebody to get in help other people and, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and get to do something they enjoy, as long as they enjoy
Yeah,
writing
totally.
about real estate.
Right. Yep.
All right. Well, I want to see your books made into movies, Beth. I do.
Oh, thanks.
The way you write, it's so easy to imagine in my mind's eye, but I think seeing it on the big screen would be just amazing.
That would be fun. My husband always says that. And it's funny, he doesn't even read my books, like, which, because he just supports me in other ways. Like, it's not his genre, so I don't expect him to read them. He's always like, yeah, maybe you'll like have this big blockbuster. And I'm like, that like doesn't even feel important to me. It's funny because it's something he always brings up, but it would be fun. I mean, it'd be fun if it happens someday. It's, I'm not like banking on it.
Yeah, good for you. I mean, it takes a lot of persistence. I mean, you've been at it, you're on your 9th or 10th book. And I mean, you must really be enjoying it. I mean, because it takes persistence.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah, I really do.
It's not like you're like, okay, if that movie publisher doesn't call me tomorrow, that's it. I'm done.
Exactly. Yeah. That's not, you know, if I can keep getting more readers, then I'm going the right direction. And if that ever turned into anything bigger, that's great. But, you know, I mean, just statistically, like the chances of becoming massively successful in publishing, it's really hard to do. You know, it's funny, like I back sometimes with like a little bit of sadness at how much money I could make on each real estate transaction. And I look at like how happy I am with a good month in publishing and how bad that would have been for a month in real estate, you know, because it's just, you know, when you're selling books and you're making this much each time, it's, most people don't get into publishing to get rich. Like the ones who get rich in publishing are just this tiny percentage, but we do it because we love it, you know? Yeah. And I love the process. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, that's huge. Yeah. It's definitely a priority, or at least it should be a priority for, I mean, maybe I shouldn't say it should be. I guess that's a personal choice, but happiness is important in my book.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Totally.
So I would love for you to share with the people listening where they can find you, where they can find your books, and also maybe you can give them a recommendation of what book they should check out first.
Okay. So everything is on Amazon. If you're looking for paperbacks, you can kind of get those anywhere online. You know, if you like to order your paperbacks from Amazon or Barnes and Noble, or even go to your local bookstore and ask them to special order it. All my paperbacks are available anywhere. And then if you like audiobooks, everything's on Audible. So I would say start with The Frost Eater, because that trilogy is completely out. I like both of my trilogies. I'm proud of both of them, but I feel like the second one is better because I learned a lot about writing in between. So I always suggest people start, and they're not connected, like they're not in the same world. So you can start with either one and they're completely separate stories. So yeah, The Frost Eater is a good one to start with. And I'm actually in July putting out the prequel to that series, which is called The Sears Sister. So that series will be complete once the prequel is out, but the trilogy is complete already. It's a complete story. So.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
So does The Sears Sister, are we going to go back and see the characters that we saw in the pre-day time?
Yeah. So it's about a seer, you know, who's like in her 20s, and her sister who's like 18, trying to stop the prophesied apocalypse. And if you've read the trilogy, you know the ending, but it's really about like how they get there, you know, how they get to that ending. And it's also about, it gets into a lot more detail about how magic kind of came into the world. You learn a lot more of the backstory that's hinted at in the trilogy. So cool. It's fun. I actually wrote it first, so it's kind of weird to I'm having trouble like generating a lot of excitement, because I feel like this book is like old news to me. I wrote it before I ever wrote the trilogy. And so now I'm like, okay, now I have to market it, you know, because I wrote it first, but it's coming out last. So.
Then I read that one. Is it just one story?
Did you?
Is it that one story that I might have beta read that one? That might be the one
you might have. You might have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes
a long
sense.
time ago. So yeah, maybe you did. Yeah.
Well, it's a great one. You guys got to check it out.
Thank you. And it's gone through some changes since you beta read it too. So like that's the book that has changed the most in a lot of ways from like my first versions to what it ended up as. So,
Oh, cool. We'll
and
definitely check it
actually,
out.
like, I don't know if you do this, but the VSS 365, the very short stories on Twitter, that book started as a like 50-word short story on Twitter.
No
And
way.
it did. And
I
then it
didn't know
turned
that.
into, like, I decided to write it as a book. I wrote it as a novella first, like a short novel. And then it got longer and longer. By the time you read it, I think it was a novel. But then I just kind of kept making some tweaks to it to get it to its final form. So it went from 50 words to like 80,000 words. It's pretty weird.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. It just
Yeah.
goes to show that your inspiration, just exercising that little bit of inspiration, you never know where it's
Yes,
going to lead.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Very cool. Well, this has been so much fun, so
Yeah.
informational, so, inspiring. It's been really great getting to connect with you more and have this conversation. And I'm excited
It
for everybody to
has.
hear
Thank
it.
you. Yeah, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.